Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective. Happy Tuesday, and welcome back. Feels like forever since I've done one of these, which was last Thursday, but we had a holiday weekend here in the United States, so I was off yesterday too, just because. So anyways, I'm going to pull some guidance cards, and then we'll get into our topic for today. Today is Tuesday Thoughts, and it's going to kind of be like Hodgepodge Monday. Just got a few things. Yesterday was a new moon, so I want to read the Moonology card for new moon in Gemini. And yeah, and then we'll do an affirmators deck and see where, or a card, and we'll just go from there and see how that turns out. Okay, so let's just, wow, getting some ones that are just popping out today. A lot of messages, probably a lot from over the weekend when nothing was happening. So anyways, let's go. All right, let's just shuffle these since I've seen some of them by accident when they flipped out. All right. You're no longer a servant to that which weighs you down. You are free. So here's the thing about this. I was thinking about this because since we had a new moon, new moons are typically, if you follow this form of metaphysical spiritualist type of thinking, new moons are a time when you put your intentions into action. And good morning, older sibling. It's good morning, baby sibling. When you put your intentions into action and let them start to expand and wax. Waxing means going from the new moon to the full moon. Waning means, kind of letting go, like weaning almost, from the full moon to the new moon. Well, right now we're in the cycle of the new moon to the full moon. So you set your intentions, and then you just kind of roll with it and just trust that everything is going to turn out for the best. It may not turn out the way you want it, but whatever is going to happen is going to happen. Sometimes things will be removed and be like, well, I don't understand why that happened. I didn't want that to happen. And, just know that sometimes higher powers in the universe know better than we do. A lot of times we get all clogged up in our brain, right? And we stop listening to our heart and our soul, and we stop remembering, who we are and what we're made of, because we start believing all the gunk and the trash that we get filled with every day. So, you are no longer a servant to that which weighs you down. You are free. So the point I was trying to make with the new moon, it's also about, like I said, it's about setting that intention. So set that intention. When you get to the full moon, start to let things go as well. Okay, we just finished that cycle, and we're moving into this one. Allow yourself to be free. So the point I was trying to make with this, which I'm all over the place, apparently I'm out of practice, since we just finished that cycle of the new moon, which is letting go and, making way for new things, let it go. Okay, let whatever it is that has been holding you down, let it go. Now is the time to set the intentions on what your next steps are to be. Leave the past where it belongs. Stay focused in the present, and if you need to, make plans for your future or try to manifest good things for your future, but leave it open. Okay, don't make everything so precise that your powers that be, your guides, whatever it is that you've turned to, or whoever it is you turn to, can't do anything for you because you've left them zero wiggle room. Leave the wiggle room. Okay, I'm sorry if you can hear that. I have no idea. I think there's construction going on outside. So anyways, let go of what does not serve you anymore. So Rome wasn't built in a day. Give yourself some time. Okay, nothing happens like that. I mean, we'd like it to, and a lot of times little things do. And little things to me are huge, right? Little things are huge. I forgot to change my glasses. Totally forgot. Side note, squirrel. But we have to remember that Rome wasn't built in a day. Okay, nothing was built in a day. Skyscrapers are not built in a day. So be easier on yourself. Go easy on yourself. Give yourself a break. Allow yourself some breathing room. All right. Master of chill, slow down. What you don't finish today will still be there tomorrow. Breathe and relax. I feel like this might be for all the people that are going back to work today and probably have a stack of papers this high. It'll still be there tomorrow. You've come back from holidays before with a stack of papers and you've gotten through it. Take deep breaths, manage your time well, and just, you know, believe, instead of looking at it going, oh, just look at it and say, you know what? I'm so happy and grateful that I get through what I get through today, and I'll finish this all up over the course of the next few days or the next day or so, depending on how much there is. And you will find that when you stop and you get out of your head for a moment, and you stop the anxiety that's trying to creep in, and you give yourself a moment of mindfulness and clarity, you start to see that the pile goes down actually a lot faster, because you're focusing, you're breathing, you're not panicking about how high that stack is. And before you know it, it's an empty inbox. Let's see. Ooh, platform 9 3/4. This one is one of my favorite cards. You have to trust that what you are running at will see you through to the other side. So if anybody's seen the Harry Potter movies, you have to remember that platform 9 3/4 was through a brick wall on a magical train platform that nobody could see except for the witches and wizards that were going to Hogwarts. But the reason I like this card, and the reason I came up with this saying, is because a lot of times we're running at something, and we're running at something that we have in our mind as how it should be. And I've learned, and really I've learned the hard way, that we have to focus on the what so the how can happen. I learned that in a seminar, a Jack Canfield seminar. I know, say what you want, I don't care. But you know, the thing is, whether you believe in these things or not, or these feel-good seminars where people try to tell you how to think and manifest and all that stuff, I always come away with something that sticks with me. And that's one of them. Focus on the what so the how can happen. And to break it down, it means if you know, say, we'll make it small. There's a job you want. There's a particular job you want. You know, now it does make it hard to have that wiggle room, because maybe there's a certain company that you want to work with. Well, you may not get that job, but that doesn't mean you won't later down the road. That doesn't mean that you won't pick up your skill sets at wherever you've landed. And, you know, but that doesn't mean stop. Okay? If you see another position open up there, keep applying, because sometimes they also like persistence. They like people who they know aren't just going to come in, you know, say, oh, put this on my resume because I worked for this big company, and then leave. They want people who are going to stay, and they want people who are going to be there for the long haul. And, you know, wherever you go, you may pick up these different skill sets. I mean, I was an admin for 20 plus years, and I look at the way I do some of the things now, and I thought, wow, if I didn't have those skills, I'd be totally like flailing in the wind right now. And I don't even do office work right now. But those are life skills that I have. And to other people, they may not seem like it. But there are places that I've gone into just to help. And it's like, oh, here, let me help you with this. And then poof, it's done. Filing is one of my superpowers. I hate it, but it is one of my superpowers. Because I get really OCD and anal about ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. But I know. But you have to trust what you are running at to get through the other side. So if there's something that you really, really want, put it out there. Put it out there as the how, or as the what. Okay? And let the how happen. Don't try to control it. Don't try to manufacture ways to make it work. Just let it go. Set the intention, like now, and let it grow. It's like planting a seed. Okay? And, oh, this is a good one. Start each day with a grateful heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Every morning I wake up and I say this. I am so happy and grateful for this new day. Thank you for this new day. Miracle shall follow miracle, and wonders shall never cease. And, you know, sometimes it doesn't help. But I know that when I go to bed at night, no matter how my day turned out, that I did my best to start it the way I wanted it to start. I did my best to put the intention out there. And a lot of times when I've done that, it has helped me deal with the things that I am faced with during the day. And it has helped me manage it better than if I just would have woken up all cranky and, you know. And so, let's just jump in, okay? Before we get to the Affirmators deck, I wanted to pull a Moonology card because, like I said, yesterday was the new moon in Gemini. So, I'm not going to lie, those remind me of caricatures of my baby cousin, who is also a Gemini. I mean, it doesn't really look like her, but it reminds me of her. So that's hilarious. I'm going to hold that so she can see it. Right, baby sibling? So, new moon in Gemini. Communication is key. Communication is key. Right, okay, so I'm just going to read the whole thing. Okay, normally when I do these on Friday and I'm doing Oracle Friday, I'll just read part of it, but I'm going to read the whole thing. A successful relationship usually comes down to one thing: communication. And the new moon in Gemini card is all about the start of a new cycle for communicating with the person at the center of your question. Talking things through is the answer to whatever it is you're asking about. If you can't talk to that person, you can journal about it to yourself. Emails, text messages, and all other forms of communication will also help you now. If the issue you're asking about concerns a sibling or neighbor, there's a new start coming. A time to wipe the slate clean and start over. This card could also suggest you've been too frivolous lately and need to get grounded again. But most importantly, drawing this card emphasizes the need to communicate. Attune to the moon. Write a list of all the people you love most and see if you're prioritizing them. Additional meanings for this card. Time to tell someone how you feel. Don't be all in your head and not in your heart. You have to be in your heart and your soul. Someone is flirting with you. Read more books. Okay, well, if you're reading a lot of books, how are you going to know if someone's flirting with you? I'm just kidding. I'm just being stupid. The teaching. Gemini is the sign of communication and socializing, of ideas and travel. And the energy around it and this card, no matter when you pull it, is speedy, gossipy, and flirtatious. The new moon in Gemini is a wonderful time to get out and socialize. Gemini loves a chat. One thing to be aware of is that this card can also indicate being mentally scattered. That's me. Daily meditations will help to unscramble crossed wires in your brain. I love that. I'm reading this and all I can think of is baby sibling, because she is like the social butterfly of social butterflies. She's like the queen of social butterflies. And yeah, you know, and they do like to chat. They are chatty. I'm a Capricorn, but I'm actually very chatty. I think that's in the DNA. But it's funny because sometimes we'll get on the phone. It's like, I can't talk very long. And then we're on the phone for like an hour and a half just talking. And that's both of us, you know, but yeah, but just remember, this is what it's talking about. So if you're thinking, oh, it's a new moon, big deal, whatever, think about whether you're communicating well enough with the people around you. Think about whether or not you're making time for those that you care about, even if it's just a few minutes. Think about whether or not, you know, you're feeling scattered. You know, I did a burn ritual last night, and older sibling was in her room, and I get this text: "Are you burning something?" It's like, yeah, I am actually. I know, but if fire safe bowls, guys, I had fire safe bowls. I do recommend doing it outside, but I didn't feel like going outside last night. So, but I did do it in my room, and I told her, and she's like, "Oh, well, what are you doing?" And one of the things I told her, because it was a new moon, I was setting my intention. I feel like I have been healed for quite some time now. In fact, I was looking through the Floof book, which I'm pointing at, and I was trying to remind myself, I was trying to remember when it was exactly that I felt like I had healed. And it was about 26 days ago, on May 5th. So, I thought about that, and I thought, if I'm healed, why am I still stuck in this holding pattern? And I realized that the reason, oh, sorry, I just saw a comment. I thought that when you said it, I think it's the chatty part of the social butterfly part. I'm not sure, baby sibling, but you're all the wonderful things that card has to say. But what I realized was that I was still holding on to I was in a holding pattern. But I wasn't in a holding pattern because there was no room to land. I was in a holding pattern because that's where I was keeping myself. I was hovering. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, we're afraid to land, right? Because it means you got to kind of hit the ground running, and you're not sure what you're running at. And I had a really long conversation over the course of several days with a really good friend of mine, and another person I met through hockey. But early on, We were talking about, early on, he would just kind of, it's just funny how random things are. Okay. I knew this person through another friend because of hockey. And then one day out of the blue, because they know I love Disney, they let me know, hey, whoa, I just got this job at Disney. I can't remember exactly what he does, but it's with the IT stuff. And to the point where they get credits in the movies. And that might be a humble brag, because it's always fun to find my friends in the credits of movies, for what they've done. And it's kind of like a weird, proud mom moment, even though most of them are close to my age and I'm not their mom. But it's like that proud moment that you have when you see somebody and their hard work is paying off. And we just had this really great conversation. And early on, like I said, when they first reached out, it was about Disney, and then they started really kind of opening up. Turns out we both realized, I found out he already knows he's an empath, but I knew it too. And we talked and we talked, and then we talked a lot this weekend, and we talked about a lot of different things, and I was feeling kind of lost and kind of scattered. And then he started sharing all these stories about me, all the way up to even when he, how he and his wife got back together. And not got back together, but I mean, how they reconnected, and then poof, the magic was there this time. And it reminded me of how I keep myself stuck, how I keep myself in these holding patterns. And what it really, really reminded me of is how I saw him just kind of throwing caution to the wind. And he's kind of like me, we talked about how we like to have a plan. And, there's a lot of things that my friend and I work through, like with one another. And we both kind of struggle with the sleeping things. So a lot of times we're just online late at night and we're just yammering. Sometimes there's concerns about, I'm only a temporary at this job, but I hope I get permanent. Now they're permanent because they kept pushing in the direction they wanted to push in. They weren't trying to be anyone different than that they thought that the company might want. But what they were being was themselves. And I felt very, very, I was touched at the fact that they opened up to me and that I was able to talk them through these things, because that's what friends do. We talk each other through these things. And he talked me through a lot this weekend. This weekend I felt like I was literally on the brink or the cusp of the leap of faith. Just jumping off and floating into the unknown. And I feel like my friend, literally with all his stories, just came up and just boom, just pushed me right over the edge. Not even just a little plink over the edge. No, just, Shelly, just go. And I told him, I said, thank you. Thank you for the chit chat, because I realize now that, part of my big problem was going into the unknown. And I told him, I said, I am the kind of person that always needs a plan. And that's kind of what started the conversation. And he says, well, let me tell you all these stories. He told me about how before he had reconnected with his wife, he had met this one person, on a video game. And, that person was going through a lot. They tried to date, didn't quite work out. But she ended up marrying someone else that they were connected with. But she was trying to come out of a bad place. And he was there to help her. Just like, there was a point when he was having certain anxieties. And I was grateful that I was there to help them through. I told him at one point, I said, I feel like I'm giving you mom advice. He said, oh, you're not old enough to be my mom, but maybe an older sister. So it's like, oh, it was really sweet. But then he talked about how he usually has to have a plan. And how sometimes, when we think we need a plan or we try to have a plan, it doesn't always work out. But if we just stay open to things can happen. And then that's, then he told me how he and his wife had reconnected because he sent, one of his teams had won a championship. He was just sending messages to everybody. And he's all, I think she's the only one that replied. And, and then all this happened. Now they have a cute little baby. And that, well, she's not really a baby, she's a toddler now. But it reminded me that when we are willing to let go of pain and are ready to be healed, we will find that healing. And that's kind of the standard, right? For everyone. But the part that we forget to learn, or the part that's never really taught to us, is what do we do after that? What do we do after we've healed? And, he doesn't really know my backstory too much. I mean, there's only a very small amount. Well, I know I've shared it with everybody here, but it's not something that's really been able to come up in conversation, because our conversations don't go that dark or that deep. But they're very centered. He just kept reminding me to trust the universe, because the universe knows what it's doing, in all things. And I'm not talking about, being single or being married, but he did point out one part when we were talking, and he says, I just resolved myself to the fact that I was going to be single for the rest of my life, LOL. And then right after that, like a month or two later, he had found he and his wife had reconnected. And it was because he stopped worrying. He started focusing on himself. He started focusing on his career. He started focusing on all the things that were important to him. And not just focusing on, because, I think one of the reasons my friend and I get along so well is we're both sadly hopeless romantics. And, but it's always nice to connect with someone who is, because it's like they get how your brain works, right? But he found that because he stopped trying to figure out the how. And he just focused on the what. He started to focus, he shifted the narrative. He shifted the narrative from how is this going to happen to, you know what, I just want to focus on this. I'm going to put this on the back burner, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But I need to focus on what, because a lot of times when we take our focus off of something that we're so hyper vigilant about, you make way, you give the powers that be, the universe, your deities, your source, higher power, you give them that wiggle room to make things happen. And sometimes, the world shifts in interesting ways. We don't always know how it does it. We don't always know, when it's going to happen. Well, we usually don't know when it's going to happen. But when we shift our mindset and the narrative from the how and just focus on the what, again, you give it that wiggle room. You give it that space it needs to grow, to become something. And, I wasn't trying to zero in on the, I wasn't trying to zero in on the relationship part. I'm talking about just in general. If you're waiting for something to happen and you are so focused, that's what I meant to say, not hypervigilant. If you're so hyper focused on one particular thing, you might actually be making it harder for it to happen, because you're trying to come up with 5,000 different ways on how it should happen, why it should have happened by now, when it should happen, and you're not giving your source or your higher powers that wiggle room they need. You're not giving them that room, the energy out there, that room to make things happen. Case in point, last week was a rough week for a lot of people. I mean, it was a rough week for one particular town in Texas, but it was also just, it kind of, the dust seems to have settled on certain things, and then the dust was kicked right back up again because of two bad things that happened in the month of May, two bad shootings. And so I think everybody's minds were just kind of all over the place. And a lot of times when that happens, we kind of forget, and we start to get negative again. We start to poof in the wrong direction. And, I initially had a thought that I was going with that, but my thoughts are everywhere right now, because, but one of the reasons I do this show is because I want to share perspective. I want to share, another point of view, another narrative. Because sometimes we get so focused on the negative. And there was a lot of negative to really kind of sink your teeth into last week. I mean, there was a lot. And it comes out in different ways. It comes out in a lot of different ways. And sometimes we just have to let things go. There were a few things I wanted to talk about today, and I vented to older sibling about them because it was something so small and minute, something so dumb. And it wasn't dumb to me at the time because it was kind of hurtful. But then I thought, you know what? Do I want to focus on the negative aspects, or do I want to focus on what's positive? Because that's what's missing in this world. You know, we start to let the dust settle, things start to get done, and then something else happens, and then everybody's fighting again. Everybody's angry. I mean, everybody's always kind of fighting, to be honest and realistic. But the people who normally just go about their lives, who are trying to spread that joy, trying to spread that positivity, they're suddenly angry. Because, you know, you sit there, and for all the people I know that have tried to spread this positivity, tried to spread, you know, all these different things, even sometimes they fight with each other over things that should be changed and haven't been, or just over disagreements because maybe they don't stand on the same lines as each other. And I kind of had that this weekend. And one of the things I noticed was how far my personal growth has come. And this happened before I had the conversation with my friend. And I truly believe that this long weekend, everything was adding up to the jumping off point yesterday evening that I had. And this kind of liberating feeling I had. I have a good friend of mine, and they were on Twitter this weekend. And they commented on a public post. And normally, when I don't agree with friends, I just try to not engage them. Because, you know, I'm not here to change other people's minds. I'm just here to live my life, try to put positivity into the world, and sometimes, you know, share a different perspective. But something they said, it hit me so between the eyes that I felt like I had to say something. And we had a pretty good thread going on a public person's post. It was the governor's post. And we had a pretty good thread going for quite a while. And just kind of going back and forth. I shared some very personal things that I'm not sure if I have. I may have. I know I've shared them in the perspective. But we were talking about pro-choice. We were talking about sensible gun laws. And, you know, I was hoping in the end that people could see that even though we were having, it wasn't really, I wouldn't call it a spirited debate. Nobody was fighting. We were just kind of going back and forth, sharing our thoughts. And their feelings are valid. Their thoughts are valid. But so are mine. So are mine. And that's all I was trying to show was from my perspective, how sometimes when we say things, even, you know, if it's meant in a good spirit, that it may just be making our own selves feel good. And all I was trying to say was, look, just because a person makes a choice doesn't mean they don't have morals. And, you know, of course, with Twitter, you only get 240 characters, so it becomes kind of it becomes a longer thread. But the point is that 2 years ago, I would have been fuming, I would have been angry, I would have been yelling, because there was so much pain and so much anger and so much angst inside of me that the comment they made would have just tipped me over the edge. Because I was really in the heart of that darkness, of that healing place. You know, just trying not to hit bottom so hard that I broke into a billion pieces. But when I looked back, I wasn't, you know, sometimes when in the old days, I would get into some spirited debates with people. And I'd look back, and a lot of times, sometimes I'd delete my comments because I'd feel ashamed that I was that horrible, or, you know, this pain inside of me was coming out and not in like horrible ways, but in ways that I don't, you know, I'm not perfect. Okay. I'm not picture perfect by any stretch of the imagination. What I post online, not picture perfect. You know, I will tell you how I feel. I'm a pretty open book. My life is not pretty. It's not ugly, but it's not pretty. You know, I'm not social media fabulous. I'm just me. And I don't know I've just never really subscribed to the idea of, and this is just me, I've never really subscribed to the idea of just posting the good stuff, which, to be honest with you, a lot of times when we post the good stuff, it's because those are fun memories. So for people who say, well, this is something fabulous, or this is social media awesome, no, you're posting your good memories. You're posting your happy memories. I mean, I don't know a lot of people who will literally put their negative shit online. I know some. And I will sometimes, chime in with my own thoughts of a bad day I might be having, just to be honest, because it might have to do with my mental health. And it might have to do with an imbalance. But what I noticed this weekend is with some of the negative comments I received from, I went to a movie this weekend and some people were just not pleased. They didn't, and I didn't want to talk about this, but it kind of goes with the whole talky part, the whole, how I feel like I've grown. And one person was just like, well, I just got a whole diatribe on why they will never see this person's movie. And that's okay. I'm not a big fan of the person, to be honest with you. But I needed a feel-good movie. Last week was a shitty week. And I needed something. I was like this close to spiraling. And I just needed something predictable but well executed to go and watch. And I got far more positive comments than the 2 negative ones I got. And the old me would have hung on to those. And I kind of did hang on to it, because that's what I was venting about this morning, because they didn't come at the same time. They came separately, and it was just kind of more like, why do people do that? I don't understand. And the first one's kind of hard, because that was more of a chat thing, more of an opinion. And that's fine. But it was literally on a post where I was feeling really good that morning, because I went to a very early show on Friday. I was just feeling really good, really kind of like high on life adrenaline. I was feeling like I was getting my mojo back, feeling like I was getting the good juju back. And that almost popped my bubble. It did. It almost did. And then last night I was starting to feel good again because of a conversation I had with my friend, and that almost popped my bubble. And going back to the conversation I had with my friend, one of the things I noticed is that I ended up telling him, I said, I know I mentioned this before, that I said, I need a plan. And he's like, yeah, I get it, because I needed a plan too. And again, that's why we were talking about the universe and how sometimes you just have to trust it, and how, he did, and all these things started to fall into place for him. And I realized that maybe sometimes the plan is to not have a plan. Now, of course, we have to have certain plans in certain things, but the unknown can be so scary. It can be downright terrifying. But the reason I shared all these different things, even though they may seem like just a hodgepodge of ideas and thoughts that are coming out of nowhere, I'm going to tie them all together now. Because 2 years ago, the person I talked about would have probably reacted poorly to all these things, whether I responded in public or not. I would have reacted poorly. I would have vented it. I would have held on to it for much longer than, a few hours. It would have festered until the point where it just kind of broke me, and I'd have to fix my mental health before I spiraled again. And it was because I had to look back, and I realized that when I was in the heart of that darkness, I was in the unknown. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. And there were a lot of different things that were happening around me. I never thought I'd reach the light. Someone else posted on Twitter this weekend, and they posted about that, sometimes we make such a big deal about finding the light, but we should be making a big deal about how we survive the darkness. And I responded to this person. I said, but I was about to respond and say, I don't think so. But I stopped and I thought, you know what, Shelly Marie, this is not who you are anymore. Read that over and over again until it hits your brain. And if it doesn't hit your brain and you still disagree, then just walk away. Because this might be helping somebody else. But I read it and I read it and I read it a third time. And on the third time, what I did was I went deep into the darkness I was in. And then I realized, and I even put this in the comment, I said, I almost disagreed with you. But I said, thank you for posting these because they really make us think. And I said, I was so lost in my darkness that finding the light felt like an accident. And I think that sometimes that's where we have the problem. When we've healed, we spend so much time trying to pull through this darkness that when we're finally free from it, it's kind of like standing there like, oh shit, what next? It's like I fought so hard in here that it's just not empty, but just think of yourself in like the middle of a beautiful field. Not everybody's like Andy Dufresne from Shawshank Redemption. We don't all have a plan. We don't all have a fishing business plan in Mexico, when we escaped that prison through all that muck and all that grossness and all that, what did they say, like 500 yards or whatever of, shit and foul smelling stuff, right? But he came out the other end. And sometimes that's what it feels like. We're stuck in a prison. We break free of that cell. And that's when I think you realize, or at least for me, I realized, okay, you know what? I chipped enough holes in this wall that I can crawl through and out of the cell now. But for me, that means that was the start of my healing. And all that stuff, I don't know how I got all the way to Shawshank Redemption, but hey, let's just go with it, right? But all that stuff that character had to crawl through, in a tight hole, by the way, in a tight pipe. Ugh. I mean, I don't know what's worse for me when I see that scene, all the grossness that he has to crawl through, or the fact that he's, he can't see the other end. And I'm claustrophobic sometimes. I'm getting better. But one of my phobias is actually claustrophobia. I have a few. I also have colorophobia, which is fear of clowns. I know. But I'm not the only one, so I don't feel so bad about that. Although I'm getting better at that too. But sometimes I find myself not breathing when I watch that scene. But now I can relate to it. Not his scenario, because I'm not breaking out of jail. But in a way, I'm breaking out of, pain jail. Emotional pain jail. Emotional trauma jail. You got out of the cell, and that's when you decided, okay, I want to heal now. But then you go through that darkness, right? Sometimes maybe you have that flashlight or the torch, in your hand that he had, just crawling through all that crap. And crawling through that darkness of filth and gross and just disgusting things. And those are our emotions. Those are our feelings. Those are the traumas that we've had. But when he got to the other side and he landed in that water, I mean, what did they say? They found a torn up shirt and a bar of soap. I mean, he had soap. I mean, that was clever. I'm sorry, but it was. He knew what he'd probably have to climb through, and the guy brought soap. Okay? I don't know if anybody else ever notices that or thinks about it, but he literally took a bath in that water. All right? And maybe that's what it is. Yes, he had a plan, but he was never sure if he'd be able to execute it fully. But he did. And he also had a plan for his friend to join him, in hopes that his friend might. But there was never any pressure. But maybe if, we go to the story, it was actually Stephen King's story, believe it or not. If you go to the story and you think about it, he didn't just have a plan. These were his intentions. He knew he was innocent. They weren't going to let him go. So he made a plan. He made a plan and set his intentions. And no matter how you want to look at it, how you want to spin it, you may be saying, Shelly, it's bullshit. It's just a story. Yeah, it is just a story. But I'm using it as a metaphor because this is how we set ourselves free. Your plan can be your intention. Your plan could be just saying, hey, I want to get out of this jail cell. So I'm going to start digging. But I'm going to start digging up. He dug a hole in that wall over the course of a long time. Healing doesn't always happen like that, right? And then he made it down to the pipes and he crawled through that stuff. That was the next phase. Getting through all that darkness. Getting through all that pain and that grossness and that stuff that just makes you want to vomit sometimes. Because it's so painful. And then he got to freedom. And I like to think of that bar of soap as being a metaphor for washing himself clean of all the ick and grossness that had happened to him in his life. Was he the best person before he went into jail? No, and he admits that. He could have been a better person. But he found himself on that journey. And he found himself, and he realized who he was, and he realized that he had the strength to make changes. And he did. You could say it was a little bit of luck because he actually had the end cell. Sure. Because maybe a little bit of luck is what comes into play as well. But whatever it is, sometimes we just have to trust that the journey into the unknown is going to work out. We don't always have to know the destination. We don't always have to know what's going to happen after we take that leap. That's why it's called a leap of faith. Because you were literally pushing yourself into the unknown. And the conversations I had with my friend this weekend, we were talking about Simu Liu, who is Shang-Chi, right? Another Marvel thing. Here comes my geek. But my friend had saved this, and he sent me this post. And it was about how it was about how Simu Liu had, his parents had paid for all these schools, college, gifted programs. And then he got let go from his job at a very big company. And from what I read on it, nobody could really tell him why, which is kind of how it felt when I left, or when I was, let go from my job. Not that we're on the same page or anything, but it started to resonate. And when I was reading this story, I found myself crying, because I realized that even though I was angry about what had happened to me, it pushed me in a direction I'm not sure I ever would have made on my own. And that's what happened with him. I think what hurt the most and what really made me cry was how he said when he was being escorted out, nobody said a word to him. And they tried to do that to me where I was at. I was told to go home, take a few beats, and then come back in the evening to pick up my stuff. And I'll tell you why. I opened up about my mental health. And I think that got me into trouble. Which is something I think we need to work on in this country, is to better train our people who we turn to be better equipped and acquainted with the idea of mental health. See, we associate mental health, and we only really talk about it when we have big bad things happen. When we have these mass shootings. That's when mental health gets put back on the table. And for people that don't understand mental health, that's all they see. That's what they equate it with. Because most people around them who have depression, we all know how to fake it till we make it. We all know how to exist when we feel like we're dying inside. That's one of the other reasons I advocate, because I don't want people to feel like they have to hide who they truly are to keep themselves out of trouble. I mean, yeah, you have to maintain when you're at work, and you have to maintain certain things, but I think there should be certain allowances for people made, where if they share something with you that's very personal and very private, that you don't beat them over the head with it. And I was angry about that until probably yesterday, or Sunday night when I read that post. And all of a sudden, after I was done reading that post and after the conversation I had with my friend yesterday, it felt like something clicked. It felt like, no matter what my bank account is sitting at right now, no matter, what I do or don't do, I know that I'm going to be guided in the right direction. And I know one of my earlier thoughts. I was talking about creating. After last week, I was struggling to create anything. And I've really, really been kind of getting into this whole jewelry making stuff. I mean, it's not high-end stuff, but it's fun and it's great. And I mean, I sold a set yesterday. It didn't even get out of the house. It didn't even get posted yet. And, I just went to get an opinion and bam, they're like, I want to buy this. Can you make matching earrings? And it's like, wow, okay, sure. And I did, and I thought, okay. It was because I stopped and I trusted that everything was going to be okay. It's because I stopped and said, all right, this is what I need to do to get my head back in the game. And that's when I really thought about how I have changed. Really, not just over the last 2 years. I think I say the last 2 years because I really, truly, honestly believe that's when I did the hardest work. The hardest work has just come within the last 7 or 8 months. Since last November, however long ago that was. Or last October, sorry. However long that was ago. And that's when I really dug deep. That's when I really buckled down and said, you know what? I don't want to be stuck in this forever. And I always made a big deal about, I'm in the light now, this and that and the other. And, you know, a lot of times we're so excited to be in the light that we're not really sure how we got there. And I realized I kind of tripped into the light. Tripped, stumbled, and rolled right into it. It was not graceful. It was not pretty. One day I was talking to someone and just blurted out, well, I'm healed. You know, it's like, I just feel so grateful that I'm healed now. And I thought, whoa, did I just type that? I mean, again, it was an accident. Oh, not an accident. It was a happy occurrence, but it felt like an accident. And then I thought, no, I almost deleted it. I thought, no, this came out of me without me thinking about it, which means this is my heart telling me and my soul telling me, you're there. Now let go. Let go and let your ship sail into the sea of bliss. Let it be free. I always talk about going from the wall of waves into the sea of bliss, or to the ocean of bliss, right? From the sea of misery. And I had gone from the sea of misery through the wall of waves into the ocean of bliss, but I anchored. Because I've been afraid of the unknown. I've been afraid of moving forward. So for anybody that's listening to this, for anyone who's made it through all that muck I just talked about, whatever, all that stuff, I hope something in there sparks a light in you. Whether you're in the middle of that darkness or you're still in that cell trying to get out into that healing. It's that darkness that sometimes scares us and makes us not want to move into the healing part, because it can get ugly in there. It can get gross in there. So if you're not sure you're ready to do that, get professional help. There's no shame in it. If you can't feel like you can't afford that, find support groups. Find people who work on a scale. There are those everywhere. There are community centers that offer these things, that offer these programs. Talk to your doctor. They may know of free programs for you. Or again, just support groups. Sometimes it's grief, sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's childhood trauma. It could be a lot of different things. There are support groups for everything. You know, and sometimes they may not resonate because sometimes people are so lost in their pain they can't find their way out. But when that happens, show people that there is a way. If you're like, well, I'm like light years ahead of these people, then show them there is a way. You may be there to be their guide. To walk them out of the dark, you know, and that's what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to be the tour guide through the darkness, get people back out of the cave and into the light again. And it was a struggle, and I'm not ashamed to say that I literally tripped the light fantastic, but not in the way that they talk about. It was just kind of like, wow, I tripped into the light in the most fantastic of ways. You know, it was like stop, drop, and roll right into the light. And sometimes I think I have a foot stuck in the dark. And I'm trying to get that out now. You know, like those horror movies, right, where they start pulling you back. But again, that's why the conversation I had this weekend was so important to me. And the things and the way I dealt with things this weekend was so important to me because I saw my growth. And every single thing that happened this weekend, I realize now. And how I reacted to it, to how I realized sometimes maybe I don't need a plan and I just need to trust the unknown, has really kind of changed my whole narrative. You know, I worry all the time. But right now and this morning, I haven't been worried all morning because I don't know how, but I know that everything's going to work out just the way it's meant to work out. Everything's going to be okay. And it took me a long time to get here. That doesn't mean you're going to take as long as it's taken me. Okay, everybody's journey is different. Some will be shorter, some will be the same amount, some might take longer. But the best advice I can give you, if you were traveling or starting to travel through that darkness, don't resist. Don't resist. The reason it takes so long is because we resist. We resist that healing because sometimes we get so lost in our darkness and our pain that it becomes so familiar, we're afraid to leave that. You know, and here's another Shawshank analogy, okay? One more metaphor from the movie. You had Brooks. Brooks was the older gentleman with the raven or the crow. You know, Jake the bird, right? And he had been in prison so long. He was institutionalized. Just like Red said, he had been institutionalized. And he couldn't make it out in the world. Everything had changed. You know, I mean, like when he had gone in, cars were just, they were a novelty. They weren't a thing everybody had. Then all of a sudden, bam, he's out in the world and it's just like, it was too much for him. He got overwhelmed and he got scared. And unfortunately, in the movie, he didn't make it because he got overwhelmed and scared. And we may come along those things in our path because our pain has institutionalized us, for lack of a better term. Our traumas, the things that we've held on to, that darkness, it had made us feel like, you know, we're not important when we move through. You know, because maybe we're slower, maybe we're doing things at a different pace than other people. Don't worry about the other people. There's always going to be someone negatively yammering in your ear, sharing their opinions because it makes them feel better to get it off their chest. Older sibling told me the best thing this morning. Don't let them ruin your good vibe. And it's like, you know what? You're right. Because, like I said, on that thing I saw, I got so many better comments. And it's okay. I mean, I'm not trying to belittle anyone because I know that people are just kind of sharing their opinion. But I was on such a high. And it felt personal. And I know it wasn't. And that's maybe what the difference. I have to not take things personally. It felt like somebody saw I was in a good mood and then bam, tried to cut me off at the knees. But no, they were just sharing their opinion. You know, maybe sometimes we could wait a little while. You know, when you see somebody post something really fun and exciting, not put your negative spin on it. And maybe just save it for another day. Save it for a different conversation. But I know now that I can handle it. I know now that I can face comments and maybe add a little different of a perspective to things. You know, at the end of the conversation I had with my friend on Twitter, I just put out there, I said, I hope that we are able to show people that friends can have spirited conversations and still be friends. Because I told them, I said, I don't normally engage, but it's like, this is on a public post, and it just, something you said bothered me. You know, I mean, that's not exactly what I said, but it was, I thought we both handled it well. And she usually does. I'm the one that gets a little bit animated and you know, overly defensive. But I didn't this time. I just shared my own perspective. I wasn't neutral because I have a specific standpoint. But I tried to keep it in a good place, just like she does. And we finished the conversation, I think maybe with a better understanding of one another that we may not have had. And this isn't just an online friend. This is actually a friend of mine that I see from time to time. So it was a little awkward at first, but I like how we turned out in the end. Just kind of like, you know, in some points we agreed to disagree without actually saying it. But, you know, there's a lot of people who will throw friends away because of their specific beliefs. And I'm not one of those people. Because, you know, what one person does in a different part of their life, politically or religiously, is not my business. My business is to focus on what I believe in and to share my perspective and to do what I feel is right. And if I share enough of that, they might see my side, I might see their side. It's hard to say. But when we start to throw away people because of certain ideals, well, there are some ideologies that I just will not deal with. Okay, but fortunately, I'm very, very picky. I feel like I have a secret vetting process for friends. I don't just jump right in and say, oh, let's be friends. I kind of I feel people out. And I don't mean to do that. Sometimes I do jump feet first because you just know that vibe. You just click with that vibe. But when that doesn't happen right away, and it could just be because they're nervous, they're not sure what to expect. So, don't just throw people away right away. And if you can, don't throw people away, period. Not everybody's going to agree with us. We all have our ideals. We all have the way that we think. And if we don't come to terms with that and we don't settle that in our heads, we're going to lose out on a lot of good things, because down the road, sometimes the things we think now aren't going to matter later down the road. The things we fought about, the things that we disagreed about, they may change, they may not change. Like I said, all I know is I can do my part, and we can all do our part. And my part isn't to fight with someone and tell them, well, you need to think this way. My part is to share a perspective from where I'm coming from. Because that's how we make change. That's how we change the world. We talk with one another. We don't shout. We don't fight. We don't argue. And sometimes, we get very passionate about things. And if that starts to happen, just say, look, I'm just a very animated person. I'm getting passionate. But don't cross that line. Don't make it personal. Because the minute you make it personal, that's when you start fighting. That's when discussions end. And everybody goes away mad. And then both sides go away saying, well, they're like that. That's why they think that way. It's like, no, because now you've just lost all the progress either one of you have made. If you're going to sit down and talk about the hard subjects, do it with calm. Try to have some peace in it. If you're going to get passionate, don't make it personal. Don't make it personal. Because like I said, when you cross that line, and I've had people cross that line with me, and I have crossed that line with other people. And that's where a lot of my healing came in. A lot of it was being defensive and saying, well, why don't you think this way? This means you hate me. No, they disagree. But my head was not in a good place back then. So I automatically took it personally. And that's what I'm trying to teach people, is that, let's move into the unknown. Let's try not to take things so personally. If you have tripped into the light or fallen into the light out of your darkness, like you just poofed through a Stargate or something and you've landed on the other side, don't worry, okay? Just trust in your higher power and trust that they know what they're doing and everything's going to work out. It's when we resist those things, it's when we resist, like we ask, we set intentions, and then we resist all of that. We pull back and try to make things happen on our own. That's when it slows the process down. That's when it slows progress down. So just do your best to trust and believe so you can receive, right? And that the 3 words: trust, believe, receive. Trust, believe, receive. And don't forget to carry with you your compassion and your empathy. Because those are 2 big things that I truly, truly believe stop people from yelling at each other, from fighting with one another, from being angry. I've stopped on a lot of people I used to disagree with, and I've tried to put myself in their shoes, and some of them I just cannot wrap my head around. And that's okay, because that's going to happen in life. We're not going to like everybody. Not everybody's going to like us. That's just something we have to deal with. But the people that don't like us, we don't notice they're not there because they're not there. Right? The people who are meant to be in our lives are in our lives. And the people who are meant to be in our lives will come into our lives when it's their time. And sometimes people will leave and they might drift back, or they might just drift away and just stay in this little spot just off to the side where you connect every so often. And that's okay too. But don't live your life for anyone but yourself. And trust yourself. Trust the unknown. Leaps of faith are scary. And I made mine last night. That was the burn ceremony I did. In fact, it's right here, and I'm ready to release it today. And what I did was I just put down, instead of putting all the negative things, right? Because that was the last cycle of the moon. Now we're in the new moon. I put all the things that I want, all my intentions. And I included in there kindness, compassion, and empathy. Because I think those are truly the 3 biggest gifts that we can walk through life with, is kindness, compassion, and empathy. Kindness and compassion and empathy allow us to sit and talk with people who, even if they may disagree with us, and have a conversation. Think of the ways that we can help change this world, how we can make it more positive. Okay? So, I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. Please take care of yourselves. Okay? You know, some of you may be taking care of yourselves in other ways because yesterday was a holiday in America. I know. You know what that means. But I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. Please take care of yourselves. Tomorrow is Self-Care Wednesday. I have some mindfulness tips. My friend, she sent me a cute meme, and it was so adorable. I will put it in the comments tomorrow so that you can see it as well. But we will discuss it. Or I will discuss it. I say we because I have a live. I mean, this is a live to start with. But you know, we'll be discussing mindfulness. Okay, and getting into that state of mindfulness for Self-Care Wednesday, because tomorrow is Self-Care Wednesday. I don't know if baby sibling's still on, but tomorrow's hump day. So anyways, have a great, great day, everybody. I will talk to you tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It's California time. Self-Care Wednesday under Shelly Marie Lucas on Facebook Live. It is public. Anybody can watch. If you do not have Facebook, I do post these to YouTube right after on the Aloha Perspective with Shelly Marie Lucas. Okay? So have a great, great day, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for putting up with my scattered brains and my thoughts, or scattered brain and my thoughts, but I feel like somehow they all fit in. So whatever you were able to latch onto, just go with it, okay? Have a great, oh, she is still on. Have a great, great day, everyone. And thank you again for watching.